my presentation here that I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of zip through it a little quicker than I probably normally would, because this is mainly for, I was going towards a little more recruitment, kind of showing people what wildland firefighting is, and just kind of looking around the room. I just want to say, I don't know, I think most of you folks have already had your beautiful careers, which is great, but I just want to make sure I put it towards the right audience, okay? So I'm going to go through the presentation a little quicker than I would. If you have questions at any time, go ahead and stop me through the presentation. All right, so what it takes to be a wildland firefighter is basic training. I wanted to go through the basic training. Who knows what the incident command system is? Raise your hand. A few of you? Okay. I thought maybe a few more would know what that is. So the incident command system was developed by the military in, I don't even know when actually, but it was developed by the military. Now it's used by all emergency management, FEMA, from FEMA all the way to, what's it called, Homeland Security. And we use it and adapt it in everything that we do. So that's the basic training that you have to have first. That's 4 hours. It can be online or in person. And it's our bread and butter of how we manage a fire. So everyone knows where they can go. Then we have the actual firefighter training. That's 30 hours. And then we have fire behavior, because it's really important to know your fire behavior for the safety of the firefighters. The fire training is tools, equipment, things of that nature, but the fire behavior is know when the fire's building, know where your escape zones are, know where your safety zones are, know the weather to look for so that when you're out there you can be safe. And then we have a new thing that started in 2005, I want to say, or 6. And now we're looking at the human factors of the Wildland Fire Service. And when they say human factors, what they mean is those stressors, those small things that you're not accounting for, that you don't think about. It's been a big thing moving forward in all these high reliability organizations, is the human factors. So we even are starting that out with our basic firefighters, where we never used to. And you can go to, all these classes go up into the 500 levels, just like college classes do. There is an online training that people can take, and you can take every one of these classes online now, except for this one here, because there's an actual field exercise. So there's an 8-hour field exercise, and it's called a blended training. So anyone that's interested in wildland firefighting can take these. However, to be able to be qualified, you need an agency sponsor. Department of Interior agency, or Department of Agriculture, state agency. You need some type of sponsor so that your qualifications can be tracked to know that you have all the requirements to be certified and that you're physically fit enough to be on the fire line. And with that, we also have medical standards now. And basically this is a baseline your first year. Your first year you have to take, basically it's a military baseline. It's about a 3-hour physical exam with different medical doctors of different sorts that you have to take a breath exam to see how big your breath is. You have to do exercise, see your heart rate, palpitations, all that kind of stuff. That started, I did my first one actually in 2004, and then they did it for a year, and then the government ran out of money because it was too expensive, and they didn't bring it back again until 2014. And so now it's back again. I think that had to do with the unions talking about some of this long-term disability that firefighters are having. Because I don't know if anyone knows that I had a question earlier before the thing that a guy asked, you can have a beard and be a firefighter? And in wildland firefighting, we don't have any type of respirators at all. None whatsoever. Sometimes maybe some people will wear like a little charcoal mask, which is basically just a bandana with a little charcoal screen in it to help keep the particulates out. But even those, I've tried to wear those, even those after you start getting really physical and walking up and down the mountains, they restrict your breathing so much that all of a sudden it just becomes a sweaty mess and you're gagging for breath and you pull it out and get some more smoke. So, but it does feel better than breathing inside that hot mask. And then every 3 years, we have to have a periodic exam, which is a lot less of an exam. It's only about an hour. They don't make you run on the treadmill. They don't make you do your breath or anything like that. They just make sure that everything's working right.
So these guys that go out and fight these wildfires, they're apparently professional firefighters. They're not just guys that show up and say, here, I want to help.
We'll get to that.
Oh.
We do have those too.
Okay.
Yeah. Not all of them are professional wildland firefighters like myself and Sean and AJ. We have different varieties. It's not the same as it used to be where they just go get some guys from the bar and throw them out there. But they do have 1 week classes that we call like rookie camps. Well, if they need people, they have inmates. There's a lot of inmates that they just be like, okay, we got to go train some inmates, and they'll take 4 of us professionals, and we'll go to a prison and train inmates. I've gotten taken off the line before when I was out there as a crew boss, because we had another crew boss and they needed trainers for the inmate crews. And so for 1 week of my 2-week assignment, I was just a trainer. I didn't know I was going to do that. I figured I was going to be working on the fire. But you got to do what you got to do. Annual self-certification. Then, so between every one of these 3 years, they send you out a survey online nowadays, and you just click it and make sure that nothing's changed. Just to make sure that you haven't all of a sudden had a heart attack and you're going back out there. And then our physical fitness test, you have to do this annually, once a year. And it's a 3-minute, 3-mile walk, 45-pound pack, in under 45 minutes. And that goes for everybody. Back in the day, it used to be a step test, where they would have you just step up and down for 1 minute. And then they'd check your heart rate. And if your heart rate was below a certain level, then you were physically fit enough. Well, they figured that wasn't good enough, so they wanted to do this, because what you actually do in firefighting is carry a lot of weight. Most firefighters carry at least 45 pounds. A lot of them carry way over that. All right, now I'm going to move into the different types of crews. We have a type 2 crew, and this is where we'll get into a little bit of that other professionalism, which is a basic crew. They don't have a lot of experience. Is there a laser on this thing? Anyway, only 20% of them need 1 season. 1 season is like 1 year of experience. So that means 80% of them can be rookies and never just fresh out of the class. So they're usually not as experienced. So where do you think they go? To the really hot stuff? No. They usually do what we call mop up, or sometimes they're even in camp, or other types of logistical and support roles. This is what most of our Wisconsin crews are. They're between type 2 and type 2IA. So then we go to type 2IA, which is initial attack. Those crews are a little bit higher up there. As you can see, 60% of them need 1 season. So we're getting up there, right? We got a lot of pretty good experience. They also need 2 chainsaw operators that are qualified, and they need the ability to split up into 2 separate modules. So that if there is a big lightning bust or a bunch of fires that are breaking out, instead of sending the whole 20-person crew there, they have the leadership ability to split them out and make sure that they'll be safe. This is what almost all of ours are nowadays. We used to have type 2 basic crews that came out of Wisconsin. Now almost all of ours are type 2IA crews, because of the amount of firefighters that we have now in Wisconsin, more so. When I say mixed agency, what I mean is they come from all of the agencies, all of the governmental natural resource agencies. We have people from the Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife Service, Park Service, BIA. Who am I missing? DNR, Wisconsin DNR. Yep, on all the tribes. Yep. Right now I have 44 firefighters that are under the BIA right now. And a lot of those, I would say 30 of them are probably all tribal members and work through the BIA with an agreement. And so the other 14 are, what I'll get into at the end of this, is our ADs, administratively determined emergency hires. So we only hire them for that short time. Then we go into the type 1. We don't have any of these around here. And those are the interagency hotshot crews. So if you've seen the movie Only the Brave and heard about the 19 firefighters that died in 2013, that's what they were. They were the elite hotshot crews. Those are the ones that hike anywhere to 9 to 10 miles a day to go fight a fire and sleep out on the fire line. And they're a professional crew that is 80% have one season, and 80% of them also have to be permanent or what we call seasonal positions. So they all live together from May until September, or depending on where they're located, it might be from March until July. So they all work together and train together every day, so they get to know each other really well. Where these other crews come from separate agencies and just get formed that day and fly out. These other type 2 crews. So you get called, the basic way it goes is we have a dispatch center in Woodruff. You put your name on the list, you say you're available for up to 18 days at one time with travel on either end. We go out for 14-day assignments, and that does not include travel. That's from the day you hit the ground on the line until your next day is 14 days. So now, because we're driving out with these initial attack crews, most of our guys are gone 18 to 19 days. It takes 2 days to get out there, 2 days to get back, and then a 14-day assignment. So we get the call, you say you're available, you get the call. Usually sometime that day, we try to leave within 24 hours. So we'll try to leave, you get the call at noon, we'll want to leave and be on the road by noon the next day. Usually it's 6 a.m. the next morning. But if you get the call at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, it'll probably more likely be noon. Go ahead.
What's your mode of transportation?
We use just regular crew car, 6-pack trucks with toppers. Agency vehicles usually. Yep, with toppers on them that can be locked up so we can put our chainsaws and all that kind of stuff. Go ahead.
How often are you working locally, like Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan?
In the springtime, quite often. Yeah, I was just telling Marcy that the last time, or one of the times I was here, we were going to stay at a bed and breakfast. And I had set up this bed and breakfast, and I was so excited for it. And I guess the bed and breakfast had an old school wooden bowling alley in a barn. And I was going to get my crew, and we were going to do some like morale boosting and stuff after we got done burning. I got here, we got ready to light the match at 11 o'clock in the morning. Right before I lit the match, my regional fire management guy from Grand Rapids, Minnesota called. So we got a big fire in northern Minnesota. Don't start that fire. We need you up here. Because we had 13 people ready to go already, so we just weren't allowed to start the fire and had to go to Minnesota. And then we have these wildfire use modules. You might have seen some of those pictures earlier where you saw the big camp with the coolers and stuff. That was a wildfire use module that I put together in 2015 to go out to the Selway Bitterroot wilderness. There was a lot of, at that time there was a lot of wilderness fires. There's a lot of fires all over, but there was especially a lot of wilderness fires, and they needed people that had backpacking experience and backcountry camping experience and all the equipment to go and monitor these fires. Most fires in the wilderness are not suppressed. They can be suppressed with the right, I don't think it's a congressional delegation, but something along those lines. It takes a lot of power to get any type of mechanical things in there. But so we just monitor them. And that one in particular, we had 3 different fires we monitored for 5 days, and then a big lightning bust came through, and then there's 12 fires that us 10 folks monitored. And so it was, in general, we'd split up into groups of 2, and you'd go here, you'd go there for the day, check your fire out, come back, report it to me as the incident commander. Then I would report it back to the dispatch, how our fires were doing and all that kind of stuff, how much they grew, what kind of activity they had. But now there's 2 different types, and these are similar to the regular type 1, type 2 crews of more experience with the type 1 crew. They're more permanent. They usually have a base where they all stay together for the whole season. Type 2 crews can be thrown together with just other mixed agencies. Here's a couple more. I heard someone actually mention something about Smokejumpers. These are the super highly trained, specifically trained to parachute out of an aircraft. It takes a very, very intelligent person to jump out of a perfectly good airplane into a fire. Usually they're not the smartest, but their ego's pretty high up there. I worked with Smokejumpers. When I was in Idaho, I lived for a whole season with Smokejumpers in Grangeville, so I know them pretty well. I got another good one for you, too. A little joke here. I always get a good giggle out of this one. What's the difference? Oh, God, now I'm going to screw it up, aren't I? I'll come back to it. I'll come back to it at the end. And then repellers. This is a new thing, started in 2008. A lot of stuff started in 2008. This one started in 2008. These are pretty cool. They don't have to land. They can just rappel. They need 2 repellers to equal the balance, and they go down, and then they're on the ground to put those fires out that are on uneven terrain, and they can get there a lot quicker than anyone else. They've been really utilized a lot in those, what do you call those? I can't think of the name right now, but the basins up to the mountains, because they can't go right up into the mountains, and the trucks can get there in the flatter area, the pre-basins. They use them a lot in there. Wenatchee has one, Malheur, Oregon area. And then we have all these different kinds of engines. We have 5 different wildland fire engines, going from the smallest is the 7 to the largest is a 3. The 3s are usually what we call wildland urban interface engines. So they carry a lot more water and not a lot less mobile. The type 6s is what you see here and what I have outside there. Those are the most used wildland fire trucks, brush trucks. Most of them carry 300 gallons, 250 to 300. I know it says 150, but those are all the minimum standards. And they have 600 feet of hose on them, so you can go a certain length out, and they always have a pump and roll capability. And they're usually staffed with 2 people. We like to staff them with 3, so that you can have 1 driver, 1 person on the nozzle, and 1 person actually running the pump. It gets a little difficult when you just have 2 people on those, because then if the pump dies or something, then you got to run back from the nozzle, and then the fire keeps going, and it gets really difficult. And then we have different kinds of helicopters out there. This is a Type 2 helicopter here. And in the helicopters, you have from the bottom up, the HECM, helicopter crew member. That person can start after 1 season of being a regular firefighter Type 2. You can go into a helicopter crew member and start as a trainee. And then you can move up to the manager, and then you can move up to the heli-base manager. So a helicopter manager is in charge of just that single helicopter. The heli-base manager there might be 5 helicopters on a heli-base at one time. And he'll be in charge of all those different helicopters and making sure that their loads are right and their maintenance is done and all that kind of stuff. And then we have all different kinds of heavy equipment, tracked vehicles. We have dozers. In Wisconsin, they use dozers, but most of the Wisconsin ones are these tractor plows you see in the top right picture there with the plow furrow behind, which they also use to like plant trees and stuff like that. That's the general tool in Wisconsin. However, Wisconsin does use seats, which is a fixed wing aircraft, which holds about 150 to 300 gallons of water for retardant drops and water drops. And then Wisconsin does have more than Minnesota. Let's make that note, even though Minnesota has more marshes. These Marshmasters. This one here is a Lactaflambeau Marshmaster, because Lactaflambeau has a large area of marshes. They have about 1,800 acres that we have on a rotation of burning. And the only way to suppress and sometimes ignite from interior is with these Marshmasters. They have super low PSI. They float, as you see in this picture here. It's not stuck, it's just floating there. They're using it as a bridge to get people across to do some mop up in that area. And then they have other things like J5s, which is what they use in Minnesota, which are like little tracked vehicles, like little tracked dozer looking things. And a lot of them actually have these funnels. I couldn't find a picture of one right off the bat. They have the big funnels so the helicopter can drop water in them to refill them. It's pretty neat. They're getting used a little less, I would say. Would you agree, Sean? Yeah, because they don't float. And they've lost quite a few of them over the years.
These float, they don't.
Yeah.
They're phased out.
So they're getting phased out and starting to use these a little more. And then they have things called skidgens. Has anyone ever heard of a skidgen? Have you heard of a skidder?
Yep.
So it's a skidder engine. So they're a modified skidder where they put on the back an engine and a pump. And so they can go places no other engines can go because of their big tires, and a lot of them have the bevel in the middle. And they are very, very useful. They can't go in a lot of steep terrain, but they can really go in a lot of good places. And they can hold a lot of water and a lot of hose and stuff. Go ahead.
So like a log skidder with
Yeah, basically, yep. Yep, they're pretty neat machines. And then nowadays, they use all logging equipment. Nowadays, since the fatality, I would say probably since the fatalities at Yarnell, the policy and the managers have been going what we call big boxes. So instead of going direct, like for years, we always have gone direct on fires, which means like engaging the fire while the fire's right in your feet. Now we're pulling off a little bit and using logging equipment in a lot of scenarios to build big fire breaks and then burning out from those breaks because it's safer, because you can control that fire a lot better. It's not as unpredictable. And then here's where we get to the different kinds of firefighters. Department of Interior, the government ones. And then we have the ADs that also work under the government. However, they're the emergency ones, and it says here, I got this out, to cope with unexpected emergency caused by fire. And we can use them for anything, storm, flood, all hazard, that threatens endangered and federal property or any property, basically. So the way they get hired is they're on call, just like the rest of us, but they're not getting paid when they're on call. Not until we call them and say, hey, you got to leave in the morning, get your stuff packed. Then once they leave in the morning, then we hire them and go through these special hiring forms, and I have the authority to hire them for the government. But before that, they go through the same stuff as all the other firefighters. They go through the medical, the drug screening, the pack test, and they get paid for most of that. They used to get paid for the refresher training that we have to take annually at 1 8-hour thing. They don't anymore. And they don't also get paid for their basic training.
So do they get paid more than you when they're actually working then?
And that's another good thing, because they don't get paid more than me necessarily, but they usually get paid very similar to or more than a basic starting firefighter. Like GS level firefighter 3 or 4, they get paid probably about the GS level 5 firefighter, but they only get straight pay. They don't get overtime or hazard pay, where most government employees get overtime and hazard pay is quarter time. So kind of time and a half, time and 3/4. But they only get straight time.
So those are your adrenaline rush junkies?
Yes, you bet. They are the adrenaline rush junkies, yep. Or retired loggers. Like one of my best ADs right now is a 62-year-old man that logged for 35 years. And he goes out all the time. He's out, and his wife's like, come on, really? We're supposed to be retiring and spending. But no, yeah, he goes out. Eric Adams goes out. He went out on 8 assignments this year. So that's quite a lot of assignments. And he loves it. He just loves it. He said he wished he would have got into it earlier in his career. And then I just wanted to mention some job opportunities. I have links up here, but we don't need to go into those. DOI has a fire job website. If you need links, you can ask Marcy for them. They'll be on my PowerPoint. The best place, though, for anyone that's interested in getting a firefighter job is to look at this USA Jobs. And then just type in wildland firefighter. They do hire people that have not had any of that online training, no training at all at the base level. There's a big need right now for firefighters. There's something, how many firefighters are there that are not considered ADs? Like 33,000 firefighters, and they're saying that 10% of those are going to retire in the next 5 years, and they still need more. They want like 70,000 firefighters in the next 5 years, permanent firefighters. If I didn't have kids that were in high school and graduating and stuff, I could be gone 7 months out of the year. But you got to have some life-work balance, right? I also want to make note, there are many other positions out there. If you have a specialty in anything else, this is what a normal fire camp looks like. This is actually a pretty small fire camp. They put these camps out in the middle of nowhere. They bring semis in. They have 1,000 people at these camps, and they have showers that are semis, and your catering is a semi, and your supply tent is a semi, and where you get your medical tent is a semi, and they just bring all these semis in with generators and set up camp. So there's all these other positions that go with that. And I know you can't read this, but I did have it so I could click on it and make it bigger. But they have them in operations, is what I was talking about, right? So they have them on also things called finance. So if you're an accountant or something and are really good in finance, or a base level one would be your time recorder. The person you hired your time into. They have to document all that, and there has to be someone moving all that paperwork so that you get paid, right? And then you have your planning people, your GIS people that are out there helping you get the maps and do all that. Then you have your logistical people, and those are all your people that are getting your supplies and making sure that you have food and water and all that kind of stuff. And underneath each one of these is, as you can see, a whole bunch of them. I mean, the actual operations is just this little part here. It's only like 20% of the actual firefighters. So if there's 1,000 people out there, you know, fighting fire.
What about medical?
Yes, yep. I have 2 EMTs that go out. One of them is fire line certified, which means that he can go on the fire line. So he gets paid a little bit more because he can go walk on the fire line. The other one isn't. He's not physically fit enough to go on the fire line, but they still need him to go out there and work. So he goes out probably twice a year. And he takes off from his regular job at Howard Young in Minocqua and to go out. All right. Anything else you want to know about firefighting? Here's in. And then I just want to make a plug for the Wildland Firefighter Foundation.